This is going to be a really interesting interview. This is probably one of the more different topics that I've ever done a interview on, but I think it's great what you're up to for just the entrepreneurial venture and what you're actually doing throughout the United States and hopefully the world. And I'm going to read a real quick bio so people that don't know who you are. His nickname is Greenlight Jesus. That'll make sense in just a moment. Okay, Reggie Chandra, PhD, PE, is the CEO and lead traffic engineer at Rhythm Engineering, the innovative leader of real-time traffic signal optimization technology. Rhythm Engineering empowers communities to save lives, save time and money, and save the environment through innovative, affordable traffic solution. Rhythm's award-winning flagship product, InSync, is a real-time adaptive traffic control system that enables traffic signals to immediately adapt to traffic demand. Chandra holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in traffic engineering from the University of Florida, and was a traffic engineer in the public sector for 11 years prior to founding Rhythm Engineering. So aside from the fact that you just got back from Burning Man, what do we need to know about you and kind of what you do and how you do it?
Well, that's a good question. So, so we talked a lot about engineering. So there are other. I would consider myself a dreamer more than anything else. So dreamers often are unpredictable. They float around. So one would think that from all the stuff you read, I'm left brain, go straight to the fact engineer. That's not the case.
Yeah, well, okay, so you're an inventor. You actually make things, and you have one of the questions here is, what does the process look like for you? Because you basically invent stuff, and then so what do you invent, and how do you go about it? And then we'll talk about what you have done and what you're doing, because it's pretty fascinating.
Very glad to talk about it because I'm still figuring out how all these things work. So ever since when I was a kid, I would get into trouble for daydreaming. So I mean, I would go off in places, think about if we could do this, how would life be for everybody around us?
Right.
And even for me at that point as well. So my process of invention is simply listening. So let's say I hold 5 patents in traffic engineering, then I stop patenting stuff because it's a surefire prescription for people stealing your ideas and calling it their own. And
right.
I don't want to spend my life in lawsuits. So I just keep on inventing to the next level. So the process of invention for me is that I go away and I ponder about things. Let's say I want to make a robot that synchronizes traffic lights. Automatically you plug it in, you get green light after green light. Or I want to build a business system that is going to take any company and that's going to expand or self-multiply that company. So I go away and I start thinking about it. I give myself to that problem. Then I listen, I look, and I try to hear. Because I believe, in my worldview, I believe all the answers are there. They're out there. There is nothing new. You don't invent anything, you discover things.
Gotcha.
Like Isaac Newton, the apple falls on his head, and he's like, oh my God, there is gravity. So gravity existed before Newton. Newton just thought through, heard, saw, and figured out there is a law of gravity. And for me, the way some of my inventions come is that because I believe in a supreme being, we can call God, universe, whatever you want. So, and my worldview is that this supreme being wants us to have the best life that we can have. And people that are crazy, dreamers like me, I tap into and I hear. All my algorithms, some of them are very complicated algorithms. They just kind of download into my mind. So I get it. It's not, and I look around and say, oh my God, where did that come from? Because it never existed before. And I believe that this tapping into this voice, this phenomenon, and downloading that for the betterment of the people. Because everything that I've invented, I've tried building businesses that really didn't add value but would have made money. They all flunked. But every time I listen and I saw, okay, this is going to create value, and I would get this download. There are distinct moments in time. Like I was standing in an apartment out on the balcony in Costa Rica looking at the green mountains, and 7 minutes of pure download. 7-minute period. I don't know where it came from. Well, my worldview now, I believe it came from God. And it was a pattern, a blueprint for a project that we've been working on 3 years. They're launching it this December 2016. So so that's my process of invention. I wish I could, transfer this.
No, here's what I'd like to say for people that are saying, okay, well, I don't get downloads. I don't know what he's talking about. How do you tap into something like that? It sounds like an interesting concept. Some people will totally relate to it, and others might, well, how do you do that? I mean, how do you tap into that? So do you have any suggestions?
Absolutely. I mean, read upon, so in my again, worldview, the greatest inventor of our times or ever has been is Nikola Tesla. Tesla would go into the forest, and he, in his mind, would get the picture of the motor running. And he could picture and he could see, he could feel the carbon brushes even wearing out as the motor ran. So I believe that's the way. And you talk about Steve Jobs. It's all happens in the mind. I mean, Steve he talks about a trip to India where from there his mind completely changed, and then he came back a completely different man. So I believe it's tapping into something that is greater than ourselves is where it comes from. And it doesn't matter. I mean, law of gravity exists. Yeah. I can stand up here and say, hey, I don't believe in law of gravity, and just jump off the window here, and then I'll find out that it's an immutable law. It exists. So now my inventions are coming faster because I know this. I pull myself away, and I spend time away from people in solitude and meditating, maybe thinking, pondering about a problem. And sure enough, these pieces come from me. I'm talking about heavy mathematical formulas. I'm not talking about, okay, let's build this nice picture. I'm talking about AI robotics that are run by algorithms. So, and I'm not trying to make it into a thing.
You're not trying to overly complicate it. Well, let's explain what it is. So, explain what, because I have a whole list of questions here. We're not going to go through all of them, of course, but the first one is, what's the mission and vision of your company, Rhythm Engineering, and how did you go from a public traffic engineer to founding this company? So what is this company? What's the vision, and what do you actually do? So that people out there okay, what does he do?
Yeah, so all of us have a purpose in life, and one of my purposes is to make people's commute through traffic signals safer and faster. So in 1993, I started synchronizing traffic signals manually. 1995, I started asking, why is the technology so behind times? Surely, in this day and age, we can have better systems, and still the industry was not going anywhere.
Well, and I would, let me stop just real quick and say, I would bet that right now, anyone listening or watching this may be the first time they've actually even thought about this, because they're so accustomed to, you pull up to a traffic light, it's just doing its thing, and it's not going, people would be like, they get pissed that they're waiting for a traffic light or whatever. But for the most part, I'm sure people haven't really thought that deeply about how to improve it. I mean, certainly some people have, but you're one of those people. This is your life. This is what you think about.
This is what I think about. So there are hundreds of millions of dollars spent in trying to figure out models to optimize traffic lights. So it's a discipline in engineering very focused on traffic signal optimization. There are about 330,000 traffic signals in the United States, and it impacts everyone without fail. If you're a driver, even if you commute by a transit other than railroad, you are impacted by traffic signals. Hundreds of millions of dollars has been spent in trying to solve this, and no one has solved it to date other than us.
Okay.
So
what have you solved?
So
what have you
the
figured
mission,
out?
but going back to the mission is very simple: to bring loved ones to their destination safer and faster. I cannot be more succinct and say what I do. So, and the vision of the company is to be the Apple of the traffic industry.
Gotcha.
So when we get there, it's what draws us: innovation, elegance, beauty. And so anyhow, so that's the vision. So how we accomplish that is basically so the prior art of existing technology goes on what is called deterministic models or formulas that try to measure delay.
Okay.
Okay, I don't want to get too complicated with it, but basically there are assumptions that are incorrect. You cannot model traffic flow or arrival at intersection. If you think about it, it's all based on human emotions. So you decide you want to go to the mall here.
Right.
So the trip is generated because of you decide.
Desire to go to the mall.
Yeah. So it's a random phenomenon. So all arrivals are random. We call it stochastic. It's purely random. There is nothing predictive about it. So historically what they have done is they attempted to create formulas making random into a steady state model. What I mean by that is that it's too much. They try to model that somehow.
Okay.
With imperfect assumptions.
Yep.
What I did was throw all that away. We started from scratch. So you've seen these cops manage traffic signals, especially when there is a ball game.
Right.
The police officers take over and they let the lights green, so traffic flows, right?
Yep.
So what I did was, assuming a logical person is standing at each traffic light, so they have to follow a pattern in order to make traffic grow. Like for instance, if a left turn lane has too much traffic, a normal person would say, okay, I need to clear that left turn traffic. So what I did was I took the brain of a normal logic, no traffic engineer, just a regular person, and I created a rule-based artificial intelligence. So it's basically I took the rules that this human would do and I put them in a hierarchy into a computer.
Okay. And so now you got a computer that actually thinks more effectively than these, for lack of a better word, these dumb, archaic, computers that are running the current traffic system.
Yeah, the current technology is about 50 years behind times. Wow. So mine is basically a robot. It has a camera, so which is the eye of the robot that looks at an approach. It sees the line of cars standing there, and it knows that how long the queue is, and it's monitoring every second. The queue doesn't get dissipated; it gets more weight. So basically, that's the eye of the robot, and there's a brain as a simple computer that's sitting inside a traffic cabinet that is running these rules.
So how many of these are out there now?
I've got about 2,500 of these out there. I impact every day, even when I sleep or take vacation, about 6 million people in a positive way.
Wow.
The results are stunning. I mean, I'm a small company. I mean, I don't have investors. I'm a one-man show, started in my garage in Kansas.
Well, you're not the only one doing it, meaning you got a company, but...
Yeah, I have a company. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
When I said started.
Yeah. So I just want people to get a context. No, you have a very successful company. You're just not a gigantic.
Yes. So what I did is as the company grew, I shared the vision, so people own the vision. It's a sexy vision. We save 30% of the crashes that happen at intersections.
So in a nutshell, the end result of what you're doing is not just more efficiency, but you're actually saving lives.
Absolutely, that's the bottom line right now. Because
so how can you track? I mean, what are the estimates of what your process put in place? How does it save? Like what you said, 30%.
Yeah.
Describe that. What do you mean?
So
by that?
I don't do any of the studies, before and after studies. I've got about 21 independent validation studies because this is science. By the way, when I said 2,500, that's the largest deployment of automated traffic signals in the United States. So we're in about 31 states and growing pretty exponentially. So I've been in Inc. 5,000 for the last 4 years. But so that's all good, but what I'm excited about is the adoption of the technology. So just by simply putting my device at an intersection, you make about 30% of the crashes, or 1 in 3 crashes go away.
Why? Like, what is causing these crashes? That would be very interesting to know.
Yeah, the crashes are caused not because of excessive speed, but because of disparity of speed or turbulence. So traffic flow is like, when you take an artery or arterial roadway, the traffic flow, it's like follows the law of fluid dynamics. Where there is more turbulence, you have more issues that are happening. So when you take the turbulence away and the flow is smooth, there is no rage. I mean, think about the last time you drove from your home to here. If you were to stop at every light, by the time you arrive at your destination, you're unhappy, you're upset, your less than happy self, because you'd think almost the universe is conspiring against you. You know what I'm saying?
Right. If you're like stopping
Every light. I mean, even a normal person gets frustrated. But if the flow is smooth, you're not going to speed. You're not going to run the red, because people run the red because they think, oh my God, if I stop here, I'm going to be sitting here for 5 minutes.
Interesting. So you literally just keep the system from getting log jammed, I guess.
Yes, I take turbulence away in the commute. So my longest corridor is about 6 miles with 26 signals that runs across 2 counties in Georgia. Who among us have driven through 26 signals without stopping both directions?
Wow, that's bizarre.
Yeah, that's what these guys do. That's what these robots do for a commute. I mean, that's the reason a company from Kansas, without investment, is scaling and growing, because saving lives, and again, all of us are in our entire team, we're about 90 people in our company. Everyone from the person that answers the phone to the person that is doing coding without seeing daylight, every line of code says we are doing this because it saves lives.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about millions and millions of, there are 32,000 people die almost every year in road accidents. And 40% of that happens at intersections.
Okay. Wow.
So, and the personal injury accidents are multiple millions, hundreds of millions of personal injury accidents. They don't get reported, but the fatalities are what everybody knows. So, I mean, like for instance, I was sitting at a red light and somebody ran into me from rear-ended me. My neck was hurting for about 2 weeks, and I was wondering whether I could play tennis again. It impacted the quality of my life.
Right.
And I mean, so many of us have our loved ones get into a wreck, a needless wreck. And if we can save that from happening, if we can, through making lights go green. I mean, that's what.
No, it's very cool. It's a huge vision, and so our friend Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach, he started calling you Green Like Jesus.
Yes, he did.
Which, what do you think of that name?
I think the name sticks, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not Jesus, but we do make the lights go green.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, and by the way, the travel time, your commute gets cut by 50%. We've seen drop as 60%.
50%.
50%. If it took you 10 minutes, and this is all not my thing, it's all independent validation studies by consulting groups, research organizations, universities.
Man, that is a trip. I had no idea.
90% reduction in stops. In other words, if you're stopping 10 times on your commute to work or wherever you're going,
save lives and be more productive. I mean, what more can someone
and
ask
be
for?
happy.
Do you have any competitors? Is anyone else doing this?
Historically, there have been people doing it. So I call myself the only reason we've grown is that we're the next generation. The old architecture is analog. So there've been hundreds of millions of dollars spent in trying to solve this problem, but they've not quite been able to be as effective as we have been. Siemens has a product, a company called Trafficware has a product, but they've never quite gotten the traction because simply they cannot deliver the results that we can.
Now, what you were talking about downloading, do you have some ability to see this or understand it, or is this something you can easily teach to others? Because you're now no longer patenting stuff, you're literally giving away the technology?
If they can figure it out, they can have it.
Okay.
So my greatest invention is getting launched this December. I'm very excited about it. So, by the way,
Is that the Business Instruments?
No.
No, that's a different one.
That's a different one.
Wow, you're doing a lot of cool stuff.
That's in the entrepreneurial space. I want 50% of businesses fail in 12 to 18 months. I want to make a dent in that because I myself would have gone out of business. So I'm building tools for my own survival. Look, I've never done. I'm a trained engineer, then I have a PhD in organization leadership management. I've never done what I'm doing right now. I'm learning as I'm growing.
Well, here's the thing that I think would be an interesting thing to talk to you about. And again, we're only going to touch on some of the stuff you're up to because I just wanted to introduce to my listeners kind of who you are and how you think about stuff because I think it's just super innovative. Since your focus is saving lives and productivity, you certainly have the ability to translate that into just how you operate as a human, how you operate as a business owner, just kind of like what you mentioned. So if you can come into the the roads that everyone travels down to get to where they're going on purpose or randomly, whatever, and you can get them there in half the time in a safer way. What lessons have you learned from doing that as it applies to running a company, to being a human? I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Because you said you have some solution that you're going to work on, and maybe you can just talk about how to be a more effective entrepreneur.
That's a strange question. When I say strange question, I'm internalizing the question. There are so many areas that I'm so inadequate. I'm like a baby trying to stand up.
Okay, let's say, yeah, in the same here. I mean, there are many things that I just absolutely suck at, and there's a few areas that I'm really good at. What have you learned from these inventions that you have been able to translate into just running your company? I mean, because you are building and scaling and growing this company exponentially, you're focused on the cutting edge. I mean, there's certainly, one question I was going to ask you, which I'll just touch on this, is, talk about the differences between selling business to government compared to business, because I want to, get some insight on all of these things that you don't know that most people would probably never ask you. And they would say, hey, Reggie, how do you actually do this? So that's underneath all of this with your cool technology, I'm trying to get to, what's your recipes? I mean, how do you actually make this work?
I have to tell you, as my entrepreneurial journey, one person that has helped me the most is Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. But without that, so he's helped me move away from my everyday working in the company to working on the company. What I mean by that is that a year ago I fired myself. I don't run the company. I just come up with ideas. I come up with strategies. I come up with the vision. I come up with it, and I have one book that would describe. When I read it, I said, "Holy crap! Somebody's already, figured me out." So that it's Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman.
Yes, he's also in Coach.
Yeah, he's also in Coach. So he talks about the visionary and the implementer. So the day I fired myself is the day I found myself at peace. So, but I still have to have systems that I'm comfortable with, that and the value and the values that I founded the company with, that I need implemented, implemented without asking questions or changing exactly how it came to me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So on the business management side, if I can figure it out, I haven't implemented 100%, but I'm on my journey. I've got coaches from Gino's group helping me onboard implementers.
Right.
And I also use a psychometric testing system called Culture Index to find people that are not blown away by the crazy way my mind works. I mean, it is crazy. It's not logic. Ask my wife. She'll tell you. There is nothing normal about the way my mind works.
Right.
So people that can take ideas and then implement it. That's one thing. So the business instruments, I found that I was flying my business blind. So
most people actually, I mean, truth be told, I think most people wake up every day and they bumble their way through life, not just their business, trying to figure out how to do stuff. And either you get bloodied a lot, or you figure out that I'm going to learn from some other people. I'm going to read their books. I'm going to, look at different models. I'm going to have conversations with people that have figured it out. I'm going to learn how to make it work. I mean, one of my favorite quotes that I've said a million times came out of Anthony Greenback's the Book of Survival, and I won't say it exactly right, but he says, in order to get through an impossible situation, you don't need the mind of an Einstein, the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules. You simply need to know what to do. And knowing what to do, like you take your traffic signals. If you know what to do, you can make something better. If you're bumbling around in a business, figuring out what to do, you make it better. I mean, when you had that insight that I'm going to fire myself, and now you're at more peace, your business is growing more, you've been able to let go. I mean, it's very hard when someone has no control over something that they try to control it more, and then that process sometimes it just makes it worse, versus sometimes if you can just step back and really say, okay, what do I actually need to do, and who knows the answer to that? Where do I go and get the how? And so that's sort of how I look at stuff, and over the years you learn. And unfortunately sometimes the way we learn is we have to fail really hard, or we have to make mistakes, or we have some pain, and then it'll open up our eyes. But prior to us starting to do this this interview, we're talking about energy and whatnot, and you certainly are a very reflective human. I mean, you think about things deeply, and for what you're doing, I don't want to minimize what it is. This is not about talking about green lights, I mean, or yellow lights or traffic signals. I mean, there's something far more at work with what's going on, and you have this unique skill. And part of it is, okay, well, how do I put it out into the world? How do I have the world pay me for this so I can not just make money, but so I can continue to build it, because you have to have the money in order to make this mission. Exactly. I mean, no one's doing this shit for you for free. I mean, you have to make it work. So I'd love to get some of, for the people watching this and listening, the vast majority of them are entrepreneurs. They live to use some Dan Sullivan terminology, the results economy. How they get paid is based on their ability to go out into the world and produce a result. And you have figured things out along the way that could probably really shorten the learning curve. So for an entrepreneur out there who's this creative, artistic type, maybe they suck at a lot of things, they don't really kind of know how to get a handle on it, what sort of advice or suggestions would you offer them that have helped you the most along the way? And you've already talked on about some of them.
So I tend to be value-centric rather than profit-centric. Mm-hmm. So there is a whole list of things that a value-centric company does, and almost all entrepreneurs are value-centric. They've got a thingamajiggy, they've got a process, they want to create value for clients. Mm-hmm. But along the way, sometimes it shifted to being profit-centric, and that I think is a death of an organization. So again, the advice, again, I'm nobody. I mean, like I'm still on my journey. I would say I'm about 5% into my journey. Mm-hmm. So what I've found is that I need actionable information. By the way, that's a term, that's a project Dan and I are working on in the Game Changer. So actionable information is that I have three CPAs, two full-time and one part-time, and a tax organization. But these are CPAs that give me information, because a fast scaling company is people think it's good, but it's the riskiest thing in the planet.
Oh yeah.
So these are people that give me information, and then there is a team of about other 4 accountants that give me instant information. My goal is to not have that, but have technology produce this real-time dashboard cockpit for the entrepreneur to fly through. Because if you don't have actionable information at the moment of inspiration, you are dead in the water.
Right.
So
you're guessing.
You're guessing. So if you have your sheet and you move a dial and say, okay, what if I were to hire one salesperson here? What is it going to do to my bottom line, my 13-week cash flow? So unless you can model these things, you can never build a business. Business never is built on an idea. There are systems, there are processes, it's a science basically, and it's tough. I can read all the books I want. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know whether someone said this before or not, but this is from my own experience. You can read all the books, you can take all the courses you want, you can accumulate all the knowledge, but the knowledge does not turn into wisdom without experience.
Yes, it's true. I mean, if having access to just reading and doing everything by itself made people wealthy, reference librarians would be the wealthiest people in the world.
Yeah. Or hang out with people that have the most experience. So the reason I'm part of your group, Joe, is that I don't have to make those mistakes over and over again. I just find the dumbasses that are in your group and say, hey, how's life, and learn from the mistakes. No, I'm kidding.
We always call our Genius Network members dumbasses. It's like an endearing sort of
I let the
term.
cat out of the box.
No, it's our code word for behind the scenes at Genius Network.
I want to learn not just from the success stories. I want to learn from the mistakes.
Oh, totally. Well, I mean, frankly, that's where you actually learn the most. And I say that with a caveat, because I'm not one of these people that raises the, let's fail and fail fast sort of flag as if it's a badge of honor. I mean, I think failing sucks. So if you can avoid failure, let's avoid it. However, don't be afraid of putting yourself out there and getting things done, because the fact of the matter is it's not, the path to success is not littered with everything being perfect. I mean, usually the course you go down is not the course you end up going down that's going to get you to where you want to go, but it's the starting. Nothing happens until you start something.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, well, let me, because I want to make sure, since I brought it up, obviously in business, we have to sell. I mean, we have to go out and persuade and influence people. So we could have the greatest intentions, the greatest products and services. However, people need to buy them. People need to, having an entrepreneurial company is solving problems for a profit. So you have to actually sell stuff. So you sell to, government. Okay, and so what's the difference between selling business to business compared to selling business to government?
Oh goodness, we can talk about that. So I believe I'm a Peter Drucker fan. So Drucker said there are two functions to any business. He said a lot more in context to this. The first one is innovation, and the second is marketing, and everything else is cost. I'm a firm believer in that.
Same here.
I grew the company from 224K annual revenue to 7.3 million in 36 months with one full-time salesperson and a half-time salesperson. The half-time salesperson is full-time now. He's a regional manager in East Coast. So marketing is key.
Right.
So how you sell to government, there's nothing different. So I sell to engineers who believe that they don't buy on emotion, they buy on logic. Hogwash.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Everyone. So engineers are great at buying using their heart, and then they justify that with their brain. So they purchase. So the marketing blitz just launched the company. This is several years ago. Then after that, I didn't have much to talk about, so we pulled back on the marketing and then started building relationships out in the field. So the only difference, there are a couple of differences in selling to government. The average ticket size is huge. It's about, I think 2 years ago, it was the average ticket size was about 320K. That's how much they would place an order. Last year it came down, it was about 280K, which I like that because you have smaller things that fill the funnel. And they're spending money that is not theirs.
Right.
They have to spend the money somewhere or else they lose it. So the more they spend, the more their budget is going to be. And how effective they are is predicated on how much money they are spending.
Yes.
Because if it doesn't get used. So so we have large ticket, so the buyer is not really motivated on the actual pain. The pain that I solve is that I save lives. But it really doesn't affect the government employee that is buying from us. They're more concerned. I mean, I have found a typical person is more interested in making their personal pain, which is a phone call from the citizen go away, complaint call from the citizen go away, or from a council member, city council member, or upper management go away. So they use this as a tool to solve that felt need in their life. So the then there's the other issue, the long sales cycle.
Yes.
I've spent 4 years in closing a sale.
Well, you said a couple of things though. So that is one. I wouldn't say patience is per se the word. It's more of just really understanding your sales cycle. And anytime you can shorten the sales cycle or improve the sales cycle, great. However, there are some that's just the process, right? The other thing is identifying what is it going to do for the person, because that's where the emotional thing comes in. If you can, whenever you can make their pain go away. So if somebody wants what it is you're selling, the only thing, and you really have a solution for them, and they have the money to do it, the only thing that stands in the way of them getting it from you is fear. And if you can remove the fear, they will buy. And now, fear may be a word a lot of people can't relate to. It's like, well, what fear would they have? Well, they certainly have, fear of how they're going to look, fear of they're going to, there's all that sort of stuff. So just understanding the psychology of what motivates people, what will motivate people, having that irresistible offer for them is critical for anyone. Yeah.
So, and offer a killer product with 24/7 support, which is the only company in the industry that does that. Anytime they call, there is a live person. They don't get an answering machine. Live person in operations. Our operations is extremely responsive. It's like Nordstrom.
Wow.
We actually buy them other companies' products if that'll solve their problem. So, but the salesperson, I don't judge them by their revenue creation. I cannot control when the purchase order comes. I can only control the activities in the funnel, sales funnel, that lead to the final purchase order.
Wow.
So because the sale takes so long, the average sales cycle is about 12 to 18 months. So which makes us more scientific. It's not a direct, immediate purchase. So it's a slow process that takes us down.
Well, so there's so many things that you're working on. What are you most excited about?
I am excited about learning and creating value. So when I say I cannot create value until I learn, so I am the happiest when I learn. I become a better version of myself. There's a lot of internal work I do as a person. I'm excited when I learn things and I find out things about myself that I can be a better person, a better version of myself. And I'm very excited when I can translate some of these thoughts that I have into value for those around me. Right. When I go to bed, I think and I'm very grateful for the number of people that I've been permitted to touch, and the countless number of people that children, loved ones, parents that got home safe because I was allowed to create something and market and deploy something that made a difference in people's lives.
Now, it feels good to know that what your entrepreneurial endeavors are doing are actually really helping the world. I mean, it's cool. It's cool, and so I love that. So me and Dan Sullivan, there's gonna be a special episode with you on our podcast, 10xtalk.com, about your company, Business Instruments, and so we'll talk about that. I just want to kind of leave that as sort of a cliffhanger. So where do people go to learn more about your company and what you do? So all this stuff we've been talking about, I want people to, if they're interested in it, to go kind of check it out. So where do they go, and what's the best way to find out about what you're up to and what you're doing?
I think I've decided to trademark the name Green Light Jesus. But so our website is rhythmtraffic.com. If you go there, again, it's rhythm, RHYTHM. I found from Google AdWords that that's the most misspelled word in the English language.
So of course you would pick that as well.
I would pick that. Yeah, rhythmtraffic.com or Google Reggie Chandra. So yeah. It's again, but that's morely a traffic engineering world. But that Business Instruments that we're going to talk about in the 10X, that's what's going to change, we believe, the entrepreneurial landscape.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, Reggie, I'm glad you stopped by. We actually have a Genius Network meeting in the next 2 days, but I wanted to fit this one in between meetings, and so Reggie Chandra, Green Light Jesus, you heard it here first, and just watch this company because do you think you'll be $1 billion company?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not for the $1 billion, but with the mandate that is on, the purpose that is on my life, I have to impact every traffic signal in the United States.
Yeah.
That's why I learned, that's why I go to work, because if I can save this impact about, say, 6 million, 7 million people, out of this?
Well, first of all, everyone that drives or is being driven, which is probably everyone, it would be really, that is great that they could get to where they want to go in half the time, and 30% safer, whatever the stat ends up being. So how, if there was something to the listeners here that would be helpful for you getting this out into the world, what would be the request? If you could make a request of everyone watching this, share this interview with anyone that may need to hear it, if they know anyone in government, I mean, anything that would be helpful to you.
One of the things is that if they were to write me, Reggie@rhythmtraffic.com, I'll send them my book, Shades of Green. Perhaps I should bring it out to Genius Network, perhaps.
Yeah, totally.
So if you email me, Reggie@rhythmtraffic.com, I'll send you my book, Shades of Green, no cost to you. Or you can, if you're a rich person, you can go buy it on Amazon.com too. So that shows you the importance of traffic signals and how it affects you and your family, and what you can do to fix it. So the easiest thing is so traffic signals are overlooked. Nobody cares about them, but that's the one thing that frustrates people the most, other than potholes.
Yeah.
Potholes frustrate me as well. So, but very little money is being spent on this. Instead, we are putting solar panels that don't work on city halls, and I don't want to talk about that, but because that technology isn't advanced enough. But I believe that, and then people are spending money. I mean, even here locally, in enforcing speed laws using cameras,
Right.
red light running. Fix the green lights first before. And again, it's a call to your congressman, your senator, your city council members saying, hey, let's fix our traffic lights. So if the citizens were to do that, it would happen. But would it directly impact me? Not really. I mean, I tried grassroots. It would take a massive effort to get a grassroots movement going.
Yeah, well, but still, I mean, I think it's really cool. And so I really like what you're up to. Any other famous last words before we wrap?
Keep at it. Don't give up. And if you're an entrepreneur, man, the passion, what is in you is what's going to change the world. Keep at it.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe.